Good morning. Welcome back to Pastor's Morning Walk on another beautiful morning in North Carolina. Last night we had a meeting for Salem Creek Academy. It was the third and final of our summer informational meetings to gather those who may have interest, to produce some materials, a live streamed and recorded lecture, now 3 of them, which we would like to put into a written pamphlet that we could give out to people to show our vision for the school, and also to unite and encourage the hearts of those already committed to the school. There's a lot of need for instruction and like-mindedness in the work of such a school, especially as much of what we're doing is fairly new. It seemed good last night to talk about homeschooling. Many in our conservative churches practice homeschooling, and it seemed good to give a word about it. I talked about its promises and its perils. And among its promises is the opportunity spiritually that parents have. Being with their children all day, every day, gives them enormous opportunity to talk to them when they rise up and when they go to sleep, when they walk, when they work, according to Deuteronomy 6. And that is one of the sweetest things. But I talked about its perils as well, and 2 I'll mention this morning. One is isolation. Homeschooled students are isolated from a variety of teachers. They usually have only mom, sometimes dad as well. But students in school typically have many more teachers, and the variety can be wholesome. They're isolated from peers, which can be a problem. If they're bad peers, then that's a good thing. That's an advantage of homeschool. But the wholesome influence of good peers is a blessing. I spoke particularly about men, that is, boys becoming men, that they're isolated from fellowship with men in the world of men. If mom is your only teacher, then it can be a danger that you just cling to her skirts and become a mama's boy in a bad sense. There is an incipient effeminacy in homeschooling that I have seen, if not checked, cause great harm and bring some homeschool boys to a bad place. So we need to take care. Homeschooling by its nature is domestic. It happens at the domestic table. It's taught by the domestic parent, and we have to be careful, therefore, that it would not produce domestic men, which, as I said last night, is the last thing our world needs today. So those perils have to be accounted for and fleed. The other peril is indifference, and what I mean is indifference to the public good. It is easy getting wrapped up in your own family and not involved in civic and social things, not because of necessity, frankly, participating in the godless public schools, to lose a public spirit that they could, at least ideally, help cultivate. Not spending time with people in your town, not together being forged into one body, one mind. We have to be very careful. Homeschooling should not just serve the family. It should, according to our duties, serve the nation, serve the state, serve the community as well. Christians ought not be happy they've been forced into a ghetto in their homeschooling, but labor all they can while doing their homeschooling by necessity to use it as a way to serve the broader interests of their nation, of their people. So we will try to shape our homeschool cooperative to embrace the promises and avoid the perils of homeschooling. And one way we'll do that is by pushing ever toward the development of Christian schools. We've got our boys' school coming. We'd ask your prayer for that. September 2nd is the day the boys' school and the homeschool co-op will begin. And we also hope to package up some of our curriculum into an online format that parents can purchase or subscribe to at reasonable rates. So keep your ears out for those things. And please pray. We want the Lord to establish our plans. We had a good board meeting after that, and we are looking forward to the future. I read in Job through to chapter 37 to finish Elihu's speech. And in 34, he says something that stands for his whole speech and I think is worth our focus. He said, "It's meet to say unto God, I have borne chastisement, I will not offend any more." He says, "That which I see not, teach thou me. If I have committed iniquity, I will no more." This is good counsel. Job is wasting his affliction by complaining, by using God's heavy chastisement as an opportunity to speak against God and to accuse God of wrong and of injustice. This ruins, in a human sense, God's purposes for Job in his affliction. God uses affliction in the lives of believers, not to drive them far from Him, but to bring them close. Not to bring them harm, but to bring them blessing. And for believers to fail to see that and to buck against it, to kick against the pricks, to refuse the lessons that will be learned in it, is foolish, it's not humble, it's counterproductive. And Elihu's words bring out that in affliction there often is a lesson of chastisement. Believers, sadly in this life, have much remaining sin, and they need that sin to be dealt with. And often in our remaining hardness of heart, it's not dealt with well except by chastisement. Just as in the family, certain sins have to be dealt with by the rod. You can't just talk your children out of them. We need to submit to God's purposes in this. And we need to recognize it as a blessed and a good thing, even a privilege, to be chastised by the Lord. It is a privilege to receive His discipline. It is a proof, in fact, that we are sons. The wicked are not, properly speaking, chastised. They are rather, properly speaking, punished. That is, in satisfaction for the sins that they've committed against God. God's afflicting them as an act of vengeance and justice, strictly speaking. Whereas for the believer, though God does deal very justly, and chastisement can be called punishment and in its own way an act of justice, it is not an act of strict justice. It is not an act of avenging justice. It's not as if believers are paying off their sins by their affliction. No, in that respect, the sting of death has been removed. And though we will die and have all sorts of other afflictions in the meantime, there is no condemnation for the believer. For these reasons, the believer has every reason to kiss the rod and to say to God, "This hurts, but thank Thee. Thank Thee in Thy wisdom that Thou hast seen fit to chastise me." And in the words of Elihu, I promise that I'll use it for my good and learn not to sin anymore. This is the right way to deal with these things. Wanted to mention a sermon that I have coming. That will be this coming Sunday in the morning, Proverbs 11:30. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. It is a blessing that God has put righteous men in the world. But as Christ said in the Sermon on the Mount, they are to be as light and salt. They, Christians, if you're a Christian, this is you, were not put in the world just to benefit themselves or just to wait around until glory. They were put in this world to witness to the Lord. and to bear spiritual fruit, not just in themselves, but in others, and indeed, to win or capture souls. This speaks of the duty of evangelism, to be soul winners. I'm reading now in Baxter, his Reformed pastor. I slowly read it a little bit most nights. And Baxter has remarkable and cutting words for ministers especially about their laziness in winning souls, about their lack of zeal in going after men to win them for the Lord, their contentment with merely preaching in a pulpit and not pursuing men in their homes by private visitation, by teaching them the principles of the faith through catechism, by dealing plainly with them and personally and closely. This is a condemnation of the modern ministry. I am thankful to read these things, and I confess they bring me low. And I think all Christians today can confess that we have a zeal for souls that is far less than it should be. I'll try to draw on many motives in the sermon to stir men up to winning souls. Think of the glory of God. Think of the glory of Christ that is harmed in our failure to use the means He's appointed to call His elect. Do we not want Christ to be, as Romans 8 says, the firstborn among many brethren? Do we not want Him to be surrounded by a mighty multitude like the sand on the seashore on the last day? If He's appointed the means of soul winning to get there, then we should long to use it. We should not steal glory from Christ, as it were, but being lazy in winning souls. We should be motivated by our own reward. Daniel says that they that turn many to righteousness will shine like the stars in the heaven. This should be a great motive, that God will reward those who are zealous to bring others to Christ. And we should certainly be motivated as well by compassion. This is our own flesh and blood we're speaking of, and all men, including our dearest family and friends, will be judged forever in hell if they are not saved. Should this not stir us up to say something to them of their sin and need for Christ, and of Christ's provision of that need? If we could think of men as never dying souls, all of whom will be in heaven or in hell one day, that would help us to be soul winners. May the Lord bless you today.